So what does that tell us? What happened here? This is the same king we just read about a minute ago. What is he doing?
Besieging them.
He's besieging who? Is it just one town? He went up against all what?
Cities.
All fenced cities, and he did what? Did he just knock on the door and he just couldn't do anything, so he left? He took them. At this point, he's taken most of the fortified cities in Judea. What would that do to you if you had that happen? Would you feel a little downcast, downhearted? How would you feel? Would you feel like God left you? Doesn't put you in a very pretty place, now would it? And suddenly we had troops come up around our area, and they took virtually every town and city in Maryland except for Garrett County. That was the last one left. And they knew you knew they were coming. You'd be feeling worried, wouldn't you? That wouldn't put you in a very good spot. Well, this is what Judea was dealing with back then. Let's look at 2 Chronicles 32, verse 1.
After these things, the establishment thereof, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, came and entered into Judah and encamped against the fenced cities, and though to win them for himself.
Let's see a retelling of it, of him coming again. Actually, I'm going to read a little further. It says, when Hezekiah saw that Sennacherib was come, and that he was purposed to fight against Jerusalem, he took counsel with his princes and his mighty men to stop the waters of the fountains which were without the city, and they did help him. And there was gathered much people together, who stopped all the fountains of the land, saying, why should the king of Syria come and find much water? Also he strengthened himself, and he built up all the walls that were broken, and he raised it up to the towers, and another wall without, and repaired Milo and the city of David, and made darts and shields in abundance. So when these things were happening, what did he do? Did he sit around and just weep? Was he just sitting in his hands worrying? What did the king do? He took action, did he not? How many of you ever had a problem come up in life where you just feel like you just want to sit in a corner? Does that ever accomplish anything? I mean, I can't imagine we had to be feeling. They've lost most of the cities in Judea. They're coming on Israel, and he's the king. All this falls squarely on his shoulders. If I was him, I'd be in a heavy depression at this point. I'd be going, what can we do? But he doesn't sit around doing that. He takes some action. He starts stopping up the fountains. He starts stopping up the waters. How many remember how David took Jerusalem? Anybody remember that story? How did David get inside Jerusalem? He followed the waterways. He went inside one of the waterways and came up through the well. And he was able to have his men went and got inside Jerusalem. So the first thing they did is they stopped these up. They already knew from their past. That was one of the weaknesses Jerusalem had. Jerusalem was a very heavily fortified city. Back before it was taken into Judea, they would sit around mocking the Israelites. It was a very heavily fortified place. It wasn't just some small little area. So they wanted to make sure the first thing they did was shore up their lackings. Is that not a wonderful thing to do? They took care of what they knew of could be a problem. Let's look at Isaiah 36, verse 1.
Now it came to pass, in the 14th year of King Hezekiah, that Sennacherib, king of Assyria, came up against all the defenced cities of Judah and took them.
We find it again, even Isaiah bring this up again. They took all the defenced cities. Jerusalem was it. That's all they had left. When faithless Ahaz died and his faithful son Hezekiah succeeded him, Hezekiah inherited a kingdom that had lost full independence. Having purchased Assyrian aid against the allies of Syria and northern Israel, Judah was forced to continue paying protection money in the form of a tribute to Assyria. When the Assyrian king Sargon II died on a distant battlefield and was succeeded by Sennacherib in 705, Assyria appeared vulnerable Evidence from the Assyrian biblical text reveals that Hezekiah seized this opportunity to rebel, taking aggressive action as the ringleader of an anti-Assyrian revolt among the small nations in his region. But unfortunately for him, Hezekiah underestimated the resilience of Assyria's might. In 1701 BC, when Sennacherib had subdued all the parts of the empire, he lashed out against this area with devastating force, and he ravaged Judea. We talked about it slightly. How did Hezekiah prepare for a confrontation with Assyria? Let's turn back to 2 Chronicles 32. Let's move down to verse 6. We already read 1 through 5. And he set captains of war over the people and gathered them to him in the street of the gate of the city. Be strong and courageous. Be not afraid, nor dismayed for the king of Assyria, nor for all the multitude that is with them. For there be more with us than with him. With him is an army of flesh, but with us is the Lord our God to help us, and to fight our battles. And the people rested themselves upon the words of Hezekiah, king of Judea. We see the first thing he did, as we read earlier, was he took immediate action. He stopped up the waterways. He made sure there was nothing out there for them to be able to run on. He started getting the army together. He got weapons together. He got shields being made. And then what was his next step? He gathered his people together, and what did he have to tell them?